water and KO the Fluttermane. But the thing with that is that SNEASLER, if you pair it with Miraidon, you lose your best Dire Claw BS, right? What a nice young man. I certainly hope nothing happens that'll disprove this video. Anyway, SNEASLER won a tournament. Look, guys, I'm not going to apologize to that fraud. I hate SNEASLER, but we're going to talk about it. I'll explain why SNEASLER works on this particular team in Regulation G, and it's interesting because everything that I said was true in that video. I still stand by everything. It's just the fact that this particular team managed to make SNEASLER work in a very specific niche, which is really cool, and I think the team's really awesome. So obviously, you know, shout out to Frederic for winning that tournament. But, you know, if you guys enjoyed this video at any point in time, do me a favor, leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications, and shout out to the YouTube members and Patreons. New YouTube members going to be on screen if you guys want access to bonus videos and to see your name at the beginning of these videos, and also, you know, access to the member and sub only Discord. You guys can check that out in the memberships tab, link down below. But let's get into it. So, what team won the VR tournament? So obviously the January challenge number 2 happened this past weekend. There were 233 players, and SNEASLER won the whole thing. Why? Well, I was on record saying that SNEASLER was washed up and that I didn't anticipate it doing good in any tournaments for the foreseeable future because it's just broadly outclassed by other fighting types, like Urshifu, like Iron Hands, and the like, you know. It's not outclassed as a poison type, though, and that's the big thing. So, if you know Miraidon loves being paired with Tailwind for Rigorath, and it really likes Terra Fairy right now. For a while, it was Terra Electric, but Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam is a menace. So, this team is running a Choice Specs Miraidon, Terra Fairy, Electrodrift, Draco Meteor, Volt Switch, Dazzling Gleam, and because Miraidon tends to draw out a lot of Terra Fairies from opposing Pokemon, like opposing Dragon types, to avoid getting hit by Draco Meteor, or maybe opposing Ground types, like those sort of things, right? It is really, really easy to pressure the opposing Pokemon into that Terra Fairy, at which point your SNEASLER gets to click not Dire Claw, but Gunk Shot. Like I said, SNEASLER is outclassed as a fighting type, but I didn't anticipate it being a poison type Pokemon above all else. You know what I mean? Like, it's not competing with Urshifu in the realm of hitting fairy types. It is in its own league, and that's what this team seeks to do. So of course we have Choice Specs Miraidon, we have the Earth and a Blood Moon with Terra Normal Life Orb, the usual set. We have the Rocky Helmet for Rigorath with Foul Play, Psychic Noise, Trick Room, and Helping Hand. We have AV Iron Hands with Terra Water. We have Covert Cloak, Standard-ish Tornadus. I do think that Terra Dark Pulse is really, really cool for sniping not only opposing Calyrex Shadow Riders, but that's also pretty substantial damage into opposing Calyrex Ice Riders if you're running a Modest Nature. And of course, you know, the person of the hour, SNEASLER with the Electric Seed, Unburden, Terra Stellar, Close Combat, Gunk Shot, Fake Out, and Coaching. There's a lot of cool things here, obviously. Fake Out next to Miraidon is going to allow you to basically get a free hit off. Coaching is kind of interesting because there's only a couple of applications for it on this team. The one that comes to mind is obviously Coaching next to AV Iron Hands, which, you know, a +1 Iron Hands in terrain with its Quark Drive active is really difficult to deal with. It also makes it so that Drain Punch is just going to hit like a truck, and it's a frustrating Pokemon to have to break, especially now that its defense is boosted. Your high horsepowers, your Wood Hammers, moves that would usually chunk it for pretty decent damage despite its physical bulk, are going to be mostly bouncing off of it. And yeah, this team won the whole thing. There's a few like really cool things that it can do. Obviously, Miraidon doesn't have like the worst matchup into Zamazenta. Like, it doesn't mind that at all. But because like it hits it for the special side, you can one-shot it with like Choice Specs, Electro Drift sometimes, and you know, Miraidon next to SNEASLER is going to make it so you also threaten it with Close Combat, and you're going to be outspeeding opposing Scarf Urshifus with the immediate boost. So in my original video, I said that SNEASLER will outspeed opposing Urshifus if it has Unburdened Electric Seed, but the issue is that you can't put things to sleep with Dire Claw now. I am not a gambling man. Contrary to what I say every video that I play the game and what I do in my games, when I build my team, I don't like building teams for tournaments with a lot of like risk in them. And for that reason, I have mostly sworn off of moves like Gunk Shot, but I can't deny Gunk Shot is a really strong move. It is basically physical poison type Hydro Pump That's the best way to think about it. It is a move that will chunk everything for significant damage coming off of that 130 attack stat, but there's that slight chance it misses. That being said, being able to outspeed Fluttermane and one-shot it with Gunk Shot is really big. Being able to hit like literally a third of this team for super effective damage, because you hit Zamazenta, you hit Chen Pao, you hit Chi-Yu, and if the Fluttermane Terrors, that's a fourth mon, you get to hit it with like Gunk Shot. Like, that's pretty insane. This team also doesn't have the worst matchup into Calidozo. Calidozo is a really annoying Pokemon that did really well in this tournament too. I think we can mostly move on from the Miraidon. I mostly want to talk about like other teams that did well in this tournament. All right, but yeah, I mean, this is mostly like standard Zamazenta. Like, we can talk about that really, really quick before I go to third place, because I want to talk about that. Obviously, you know, we know that Chen Pao Zamazenta is a very powerful duo. Body Press being able to get even more damage off of Sword of Ruin, dropping everything else's defense is really nice. I once again feel that I have to explain this before people try to correct me. Body Press is not decreased in power by Sword of Ruin, because Sword of Ruin checks for defense stats at the moment an attack is used on the opponent. So because it switches your defense stat to your attack stat before Sword of Ruin applies, it's not dropped. It just makes Body Press do more damage. Beyond that, we have Booster Energy Fluttermane with Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Icy Wind, and Taunt. We have Safety Goggles Urshifu Dark, which is kind of cool. I guess that makes sense for this team. You don't really like Amoonguss too much with this sort of thing. And I guess like if you're facing like Groudon, Jumpluff, that's like kind of a rough matchup for Zamazenta if you're not able to like click wide guard every turn. You know, if you get like taunted, then it becomes a little bit of an issue. But yeah, into Groudon, I guess you don't want to like be put to sleep by Jumpluff, because that's like a really good mono that. And of course we have like Scarf Heat Wave on Chi-Yu. So, you know, mostly standard stuff. It's the Calidozo that I feel like I need to explain to a lot of players. A lot of people in my comments have been asking me, what is Calidozo? And like, why do I need to be scared of it? It's this team. This team is very, very reliable, and it's very scary. So basically, if you know how Dondozo plays, Dondozo is a very win-conny Pokemon, where it's you get rid of the one thing that beats you, and then you just destroy it with the Dondozo. You like destroy the opposing team. Weezing-Dondozo plays similarly in that the Calyrex is acting as a Pokemon that gets rid of like opposing Fluttermane, opposing even Urshifu Rapid Strike is like a pretty decent Pokemon to get rid of with Dondozo, because, you know, Terra, Water, Surging Strikes, and Rain does hit it for significant damage. And this and that. And what Weezing is basically doing on this team is a few things. One, it's turning off everything's abilities, so you don't have to deal with Booster Energy Fluttermane into your Life Orb Calyrex. You don't have to deal with Photosynthesis or... people keep making fun of me for how I pronounce it. I'm going to pronounce it wrong one more time before I learn how to pronounce it. Orichylium Pulse from Koraidon. You don't have to deal with that, but most of all, you don't have to deal with Hadron Engine from Miraidon. It's going to be decreasing damage significantly into your team, because Weezing doesn't allow any of these like terrains or like weathers to go up. And the other thing Weezing does is it's clicking Poison Gas on the lead Pokemon and Toxic Spikes to get everything in the back. And because you're a defense boosting Dondozo with Tatsugiri, obviously, you're going to be a very bulky Pokemon that's really difficult to deal with. And like those body presses, order ups, and earthquakes are going to be very difficult for the opponent to break through. Miraidon, like I said, is like a very good Pokemon into Dondozo. But if you manage to get rid of it before, because like the thing on the Miraidon team, right, is it has a few Pokemon that beat it, but it's mostly just Miraidon and Ursuna Blood Moon, right? If Weezing is on the field, it can't touch Calyrex because Ursuna doesn't have Mind's Eye anymore. And if Weezing is on the field, you don't have Hadron Engines, so Calyrex is like mostly able to just like sponge the hits and deal with you. And then like Dondozo just hits the field, and like how does this team break Dondozo? Because it isn't Iron Hands, and like Tornadus is kind of a gamble to beat that. It's frustrating for the team, basically. Like physically defensive Dondozo is a problem for a lot of Pokemon in this metagame, because the way that a lot of these teams are built are your restricted is either your special attacker and the rest is like mostly physical, or your restricted is your special, or your restricted is your physical attacker and the rest are mostly special. See like Koraidon, Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, or like this Calyrex Shadow Iron Hands Roaring Moon, or Calyrex Urshifu Iron Hands, like that sort of thing. Like it's that's sort of like how these teams are structured. So and because like your main damage dealer is usually your restricted, if you're able to like just get rid of the restricted, in a lot of matchups, Dondozo just becomes like very, very annoying and difficult to deal with. So that's why this team has been doing so great in this format. And it's definitely a team you need to like think about going into tournaments like San Antonio or Birmingham, but I don't think you need to like over prepare. You just have to like, you don't need to like have like a winning matchup into it on lead, like that sort of like prep, because I feel like that's gonna be a thing that a lot of people fall into the trap of. But it's definitely like a Pokemon that you need to get practice into, and like an archetype that you need to be used to facing. Because if you're not used to it, it will just absolutely wipe the floor with you. In fourth place, we see Ko's team with more of a standard like Miraidon archetype. Obviously, you know, we have like the Whimsicott here. I believe this is, it's not the Worlds team, because the Worlds team I believe was Urshifu Water, but it's very similar. You know, you have your Terrabug Iron Hands, you have your Ogremon Hearthflame, your Whimsicott with Encore and Light Screen, and that Choice Specs Miraidon, and the rest is just like, you know, the same. That's really cool. For the rest of this video, I'm mostly just gonna be talking about like some standout teams that I think are kind of interesting. We did see Fang Ji do really good with Groudon and Gouging Fire, which is a duo that I thought was really interesting for a while, but I've never actually had the time to test it. So let's take a look at this right now. So we see AV Groudon. That's interesting. Most of them are Clear Amulet, but I guess it makes sense to put the Clear Amulet on the Gouging Fire, since Gouging Fire will be dealing literally 0 damage to anything if Incineroar is on the field. Terra Normal is mostly for the opposing Calyrex Shadow matchup, and I guess you really like the Calyrex Shadow matchup, to be honest. Like, looking at the rest of the team, you have Urshifu Dark, you have Chen-Pao, you have an AV Groudon, which is going to sponge those hits up real easily, and of course, Terra Normal Gouging Fire doesn't mind it at all. Howl and Flare Blitz to boost everything on the team, and the rest is just like Proto Spam. This is definitely a team I'm probably going to steal and like use for a video, but this is really cool. Terra Electric, Life Orb, Raging Bolt, and Sun is one of the most devastating Pokemon you can face in this game. Like, those Thunderclaps are going to be dealing like 60-70% to most Pokemon. And of course, Rocky Helmet, Terra Water, Volcarona is really nice for the for the Urshifu Water matchup, since you can just like Terra onto it and then force them to not only take Rocky Helmet shit from Rage Powder, but also have to deal with the possibility of Flame Body just burning them out, right? Trying to think. This team also has like a really good Miraidon matchup, obviously, because it's Groudon and like Gouging Fire. You have like the speed boost, but you probably will have to burn a Terra. And I guess AV Groudon doesn't eat Draco as well as you think it would, but it does eat Draco okay, and they have to burn the Terra to not die to Precipice Blades. So yeah, I think the one thing about this team that gives me pause is the only tailwind on the team is on Volcarona, and I was gonna say like you need speed control on Groudon to get like the most out of it. And like the roll compression of slapping the tailwind on your redirection mon is really cool, but that's usually the job of like a Jumpluff. I think if I were to run this team, I would probably go with the Jumpluff version of things. I do like Sleep Powder. Maybe the Will-O-Wisp is like important, but like you still keep Rage Powder and you get like Sleep Powder over Heat Wave. So I don't know. I think I would run like a similar version of this team, but I would try to, for me personally, I'm sure Volcarona is good for like most people. I think like for the way I like to play, I think Sleep Powder would be a little bit better. We see, is this going to be like Calm Mind on the Terrapagos, or is it going to be a different item? No, it is the Calm Mind Protect set. This is mostly standard Terrapagos. It's not too much to write home about. Rocky Helmet, Terra Fire on the Amoonguss is pretty cool for the Calyrex Ice matchup. Usually they're water, though. I think it's better as a water type, but what do I know? I didn't get 10th place. Is there anything else here that's like super cool? We still see like Jumpluff like making the rounds. I'm actually a really big fan of the current resurgence of Jumpluff and Regulation G. It feels like people forgot about Jumpluff the first go around for Reg G, and it really came back this time because like it's coming off of literally an international victory in at LAIC, and like ever since then people just have been really recognizing the value that Jumpluff is able to provide to a team, even with no attacks. Like I've seen people try to swap out like Encore or Rage Powder for Pollen Puff, but genuinely for support move Jumpluff is a threat and a half. Like being able to sleep everything, being able to go for one of the fastest tailwinds in the game with your 110 base speed doubled in chlorophyll is really cool. And the fact that like Jumpluff is almost always paired with a devastatingly strong Pokemon like Groudon, or in previous formats Charizard, forces out a lot of protects and makes it so it's really easy to Encore them into those moves that they feel safe using to prevent damage on a turn. And yeah, that's really cool. We also see a ooh, that's a Latios. I mean, Zamazenta Latios has literally won a regional before, but it was with a Chen-Pao. Let's see. So it's Miracle Seed over Choice Band. Also like T-Tar on this team's really cool. I'm trying to think, what is T-Tar doing for this team realistically speaking, I guess Zamazenta's never hated the Kyogre matchup. I guess it's for Sun. That's kind of cool. Or even just like to reactively switch in if like you think they're going, if you think like, you know, if Rain's up because of Tornadus, you can like reactively switch it in. It's also going to break opposing Focus Sashes, and your team doesn't care too much about the Sand Chip damage since you have 2 immunities and like Rillaboom, which just, it never really minds Sand at all. It's the Latios that's kind of cool here. Life Orb, Luster Purge, Draco Meteor, Terra Blast. Latios, I believe, is like 110 base speed or something like that. That's a pretty good speed tier. No Tailwind on it. I don't even know if it gets Tailwind though. This is interesting. I don't know if I could play this team. Like, this is like the sort of team where it takes like a certain kind of freak to play this. But they did it well, obviously. But I'm trying to think. What are the lines? Zamazenta with Terra Dragon Body Press, like that's just like standard. Rillaboom. These 3 make sense to me. It's the Golden Go, Latios, and Tyranitar. I'm trying to think. So Zamazenta's one of the worst matchups is Miraidon. Rillaboom sort of solves that, but it's not AV on the Rillaboom. In fact, there's no AV anywhere on this team now that I look at it. I don't know. This might have just been some guy breaking everyone's ankles with like the T-Tar and the Latios. But yeah, all right. Let's take a look at like usage stats broadly though. We also see like the Iron Valiant team that did well at like Worlds, like doing pretty good here. And let's see, conversion rates. Number 1 usage Pokemon in day 1 or in day 2 was Zamazenta, so that's good to know going into Birmingham. That might be a good forecast. I think that like if Zamazenta does really good in this tournament, there's a solid chance there's going to be either a lot of Zamazenta at Birmingham or a lot of Miraidon in Birmingham. We see the conversion rate go from 18 to 25. Whenever you see like a positive conversion rate from day 1 to day 2, it means that that's like one of the best Pokemon in the game because it's like overrepresented compared to day 1. You see the same thing with Calyrex Shadow, just barely though, with 18 to 19. Miraidon did actually take a hit from 18 to 17. But with them, you know, we see the usual suspects with, you know, Calyrex Ice converting from 14 to 15. Terapagos having a negative conversion rate makes sense to me. I don't think Terapagos is like, it definitely feels like that sort of Pokemon that like should have a positive conversion rate because it's one of the best in the format. But I think the reason it has a negative conversion rate is because a lot of people feel like they can run it, but they're not really like good at running Terapagos the way that most people are. It's like a skill check. You know, it's you work a little harder than other restricteds, but I think it's like worth it. Unlike with restricteds, like I don't know, I personally feel like Koraidon's one of those restricteds that it takes a little bit too much work compared to everything else, where it's like a little harder to run, but it's not worth the extra effort. I feel like Terapagos is like that. Kyogre did have a positive conversion rate, which is pretty interesting to see. I don't think it had a positive conversion rate in the previous tournaments. Koraidon has a negative conversion rate. Groudon has a positive conversion rate, which is a good forecast for it. I was saying that Groudon's going to be good for the next couple of weeks. I think Birmingham might be its last chance to win a regional for a while, because Birmingham, I believe, is the first regional for Reg G after the World Championships. So you're entering, obviously we have like online tournaments and like other data to pull from, the ladder and this and that. But when you're coming off the World Championships, like the biggest data point for most people, it's important to note that like Groudon has like that good matchup into like the Miraidon team that won everything. But obviously, you know, this is probably gonna be its last chance. And we see once again Zacian with the 0% conversion rate and Lunala with the 0% conversion rate. No Lunala in day 2, no Zacian in day 2. However, our day 2 usage was pretty, like, it wasn't as like dominant this time around, so I do like that quite a bit. Overall usage though, Urshifu Rapid Strike 49 to 42, Rillaboom 38 to 35, Fluttermane 36 to 42, and then Incineroar. Like these are the 5 Pokemon, right? These are like the 5 Pokemon in the format. Landorus is still seeing some pretty good usage, and Dondozo picking up because of that Dozogiri and Weezing Calyrex stuff is still notable. Ditto also not doing bad. Ditto is one of those Pokemon that I think is a skill check. It has a pretty positive conversion rate. There were 11 Ditto, only 3 of them made it into day 2, but that is a 4% to 6%. That's really cool. And Weezing, once again, one of the highest conversion rates with 3% to 8%. So I really like pointing out the conversion rates. I don't know. That's like my favorite data point, is like which Pokemon do better, like which Pokemon like have more representation percentage wise in day 2 than day 1. I think that's like a really important thing people don't really talk about a lot in videos. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about. I do predict that, like, going into Birmingham, we're going to see a lot of Miraidon and a lot of Zamazenta, but you guys already knew that going into this video, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Wait, let me see. Is this going to be, like, Bullet Seed in the Zarina? No. It is... Alright, it's Stalwart. I was going to say, like, I completely missed that team. I was thinking, like, oh, wait, it'd be kind of cool if you're, like, Loaded Dice, Bullet Seed, and then, like, Stamina on this. But I do think that, like, you can't really afford to run Stamina on Archaldon in this format anymore. It's either Stalwart or Sturdy. Anyways, that's going to be today's video. I just wanted to talk about the results of this tournament. Acknowledge that Sneasler is fine. It's a very specific Pokemon now. It's not as splashable as it was in Reg G. So it is a little bit of a fall off. Or in Reg H. But it is a little bit of a fall from Reg G. So, yeah. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.